Guys, welcome to another video here on the European Gaming League channel. My name is Tunn, and today we're going to be having a little bit of a look at both of these rosters. Of course, as you haven't seen the title already, it is 100 Thieves against OpTic Gaming, how I feel these two teams are going to do when they are paired against each other. Of course, I would do it as these two teams because they are the two favourite teams going into the season from a fan point of view, so I'm just doing it for the views, boys. But really, let's be honest, everyone's interested to see how these two teams do next year in Black Ops 4. We're going to break down some stats from World War II, and then I'm just going to give my own opinions on who I think really win on each lineup. And these are all theoretical, of course, because we really don't know how any of these players are going to be at Black Ops 4, apart from what we've seen in Blackout, which makes me think that Karma might be the best player on the planet. But outside of that, we don't know how they're going to play in Black Ops 4 quite yet. So this is really just speculative in terms of roles. I'm basing this off a 1 AR, 2 Flex, 2 SMG setup, which is what Dashi talked about when he was on about OpTic setup. So I'm just going to go with that for now. Obviously that could change, but I'm just going to pair these players up and sort of put them up against each other and say who I think would win in terms of, like, well, not just a one-on-one, but in terms of stats and who's the better player in each position. I'm going to get into it. We'll get into it quickly. We're going to go with the ARs first. So Dashi against Slasher. And I do apologize if I keep looking away because I'm just trying to look at all the notes I've got down. I've been sitting here for a good while going through some things, try and put together to try and give you guys a good comparison. But Dashi against Slasher is a really interesting one. Of course, these two do want to AR. Slasher did AR last year. You could argue that Octane obviously did as well, but you could argue that he would maybe want to, but I think he maybe fits into that flex role just a little bit better because basically, well, I mean, he seems a little bit more mobile, doesn't he? Slasher, for me, a very, very good AR. I would say he did a little bit better than Octane last year from results in terms of stats and his event wins as well. So I think they'll give him reins as the main AR. Dashi, obviously coming into this team, has said he wants to main AR. He said it himself on his stream after the announcement on Vision. So I'm going to just take their word for it and go with Dashi and Slasher as the two main ARs. Let's jump into Dashi's statistics last year. Obviously sensational. He had a 1.2 respawn KD, which put him in third overall, and was first in Search and Destroy KD. Didn't write that down, but he was first anyway. He was at the top. I think it was like a 1.27 or something like that. I'll find out. Again, I've been using Code Comp Stats. Thank you very, very much to JP for all the work that he did last year. But in terms of Dash's statistics, obviously very, very good. Slasher, right there with him, though. He came in with a 1.21 KD, which was second overall, only to Methods, obviously with Dashi in third. Although it's worth noting that he did actually play 100 more maps than Dashi in Respawn. So I feel as if with a bigger sample size, you may just about give that to Slasher anyway. Realistically, 1.21 over 1.20 is obviously better, but at the same time, it's from a bigger sample size, so he's done very, very well. In terms of S&D, Slasher came in second place to Dashi with a 1.24. However, he did play double the amount of maps, so take that into consideration. Success-wise, last year, we know that Slasher had a great year and was a huge factor in why Rise Nation was so good. They took 2 championships home in World War II. They probably were favourites for the rest of the events that they didn't win towards the end of the year, being champs and Stage 2 playoffs, of course, but they faltered in the finals and champs, and not in champs and Stage 2 playoffs, and champs, they didn't have a great time overall. For me, this one, it's very, very equal. But for me, Slasher performed consistently at the top. Dashi was in a team with players who weren't necessarily at the top of their game throughout the year. I would say his stats will be a bit more padded because of the players that he played with. No disrespect to those guys, but if you look in comparison, Slasher was playing with like Gunless, TJ, Looney all year, and he put up those numbers, whereas Dashi was in Complexity, who didn't really do too much in the grand scheme of things. For me, I think Dashi is unproven in a top 3 team, which is what these two teams are. They are very, very good. They're potential event winners every single time. Slasher is already proven in this one. I'm going to go with Slasher to win the AR battle in this respect. I think OpTic are going to lose out on this one. Dashi, very good player, but I think Slasher in terms of an AR will be better. Right, now let's move on to TJ and Enable. Now, I'm not 100% sure on what Enable is going to be running, but I do expect it to be SMG or Flex. For the sake of this argument, we will say SMG. Pharaoh said he wants to Flex, and I don't think Octane's going to run an SMG. I don't think Kenny's going to run an AR. I think Enable will probably end up SMG, and TJ, I'd imagine the same. Obviously, we did see him SMG last year and did very, very well with Rise Nation, so I expect him to be SMGing. Let's go to the stats. TJ hit a 0.97 respawn KD last year, which was 54th overall. Not impressive at all, but with a really good S&D stat of 1.13, which is mostly based off his high first blood percentage as well. But he had a really, really good time at the start of things in Rise, where he was just flying down the middle of the map and picking up multiple kills before anybody even knew where he was. So he's a very, very good S&D player either way. Enable hit a 1.02 respawn KD, which got him 36th overall, but his S&D, it was second lowest with a 0.8. Only Sensor doing worse last year in terms of S&D. Of course, when all these stats are based off 75 maps or more. Not great in terms of S&D from Enable, of course. In terms of success, TJ got himself 2 championships last year. A slow start at Dallas, but once he got into this Rise Nations team and started getting things going, they had high placements and did very, very well. Enable managed to take S2 playoffs off TJ and Rise, of course, but a second place at Champs as well, realistically, didn't quite do as well as TJ did in terms of event wins, etc. And on a pure talent perspective, I would say TJ takes this one. S&D being the big factor in this one. He was very, very good in S&D last year. In terms of his KD, obviously it wasn't it was one of the highest. I think it was in the top 20 or so. Enable really lacking there. And I mean, you know what? These two might not be going up against each other as SMGs next year, but I'm just trying to pair the players together where exactly I think they could definitely sit, if that is the proposed lineup of how players are going to be doing it, with 2 SMGs, 2 flexes, and an AR. I'm going to have to give this one to TJ. He had a fantastic year last year. I feel like Enable might be the weakest member of that 100 Thieves squad as well. So for me, I would say TJ takes the SMG battle here. Moving on to Karma against Octane. This is a juicy one, actually. I'm interested to see how these two do against each other. Both these guys, though, could be running ARs. Dashi could be running Flex. Wouldn't surprise me if he moves into it. Karma, he could be running Flex or main AR. Who really knows? Octane could be running main AR and then having Slasher run Flex. So this one is... I'd imagine these two will match up in some respect. So we'll go through it. We'll go through it anyway, but... For me, I think it's difficult to predict what these two guys are going to be doing. In terms of stats, let's move on to Karma's. He put up a 0.98 respawn KD with a 0.9 S&D KD. Nothing too sensational. Octane, however, did put up a 1.18 respawn KD, which was 4th overall, and a 1.16 S&D KD at 9th overall. So very, very impressive from Octane stats-wise. But bear in mind that Octane did play AR all year. Typically, ARs did have a better time with things in terms of stats. Both of them really did struggle placement-wise throughout the whole year, with Octane probably trumping Karma. Well, definitely trumping Karma in that respect, because he did actually win Birmingham. Damon obviously did miss the back end of the season, though, so, I mean, how they would have done with Karma and that team, OpTic, you don't really know. You'll never know. But realistically, if the trend had continued, I don't think they would have won anything. I think S1 Playoffs was obviously their best shot, and they messed that up. But for me, this is a difficult one to break down in terms of who I think is going to be better for the team. Octane could potentially be moving into a different role here. He was typically a normal, standard, full AR last year, whereas now he could be moving into a flex role. It's difficult, but the thing is, all the stats and all the facts do point towards Octane if you're basing it off last year. But Karma is Karma. You can't underestimate him at any point during this game. We know how good he can be. He's probably the best player that's existed on Call of Duty full stop. For me, he's got 3 rings. He's such an intelligent player. I think he's going to be fantastic for the 2 young guys in this team, in TJ and Dashi. But he had a poor year last year. Hopefully their form can get fixed and they get back to the OpTic that we know and love. But for me, I'm going to have to call this one a draw, actually. I think it's too hard to put them against each other. Octane probably had a better year last year, but is moving into a different role. Karma had a really poor year last year, but realistically, it's Karma. So I would call this one a draw so far. Obviously interested to see how both these two players turn out on Black Ops 4. Pharaoh against Krim. So Pharaoh did SMG last year, but has said that he wants to flex, and I expect Krim to be flexing as well, because, I mean, realistically, he's the more likely to be doing that on this team. terms of stats, Crim put up a 1.11, which was good enough for a joint seventh, in respawn KD with a respectable S&D KD of 1.03, which got him in and around the top 30. Ferro put up a 1.01 in respawn over the nearly exact same amount of maps as Crim, S&D wise, but as you can imagine, Ferro is very, very near the top of the 1.18 at number 6 overall with the most kills per round of anybody in World War II. So, I mean, a phenomenal stat from Ferro there in terms of S&D. Towards the end of the year as well, he was reaching higher levels than these stats say, because obviously they had a slow start at the beginning of the year. Ferro, in terms of wins, won Stage 2 playoffs and got second at Champs. OpTic and Crimsix obviously winning absolutely nothing last year. But when it comes to putting these two against each other, it's very difficult. Ferro did SMG throughout the most of the year last year with TK, and he matches up with Kenny very, very well. However, Crim didn't have a great year, and I would say he was probably the most consistent of the OpTic members, but for me, this one actually comes down to experience. Ferro has really only been at the top of the game for 3 months, whereas Crim has been there for years and years. So for me, the jury is actually still out on Ferro, as it is with Dashi. We haven't seen these guys consistently do it year after year after year. We know that Crim has done it year after year after year. I'm going to give this one to Crim. So far, before we go into the last one, it's pretty much a draw. Or is it? I don't know. No, hold on. I've actually got it currently at 1. Okay, 1. That was a draw. Okay, so OpTic are currently 1 in the lead, I would say. Crim, for me, just sort of trumps Ferro there, giving them the lead. But let's go to Kenny versus Scump, which is probably going to be the most interesting one between these two. Excuse me, take a drink. I've been speaking for 12 minutes straight. Okay. Kenny against Scump. Obviously, two hyper-aggressive SMGs from these two teams. I'd be very, very shocked if either of these guys are doing anything different to SMG throughout the year. I'd imagine they will. But anyway, let's get into the stats. Kenny put up a 1.07 in respawn and a 1.1 in S&D, finding himself in the top 20 overall. Scump was slightly behind them both with a 1.05 respawn and a 0.99 on S&D. By his standards, Scump had a bad year last year. Typically, he's always been near the top. He's always been the best player in the game, or in and around that anyway. OpTic didn't win a single event. It's hard to argue for Scump here. Kenny was the MVP from last year, easily the best player on the game last year. Very, very consistent. 3 different major events. It's second at Champs as well. It gives him the edge in this one. I'm sorry, OpTic fans. I really am. But for me, Kenny takes this one. You could say the same applies to Kenny as it does to Ferro, where we haven't seen him do it for years and years. But he was so above and beyond a lot of people last year. And he was actually so much better than Scump last year in their respective lineups, of course. I'm going to have to give it to him. I think Scump, obviously going into Black Ops 4, we know what he can do. He is the so-called king. So let's see when we go into Black Ops 4. But right now, I think Kenny is very, very hard to bet against. I would just about give him this one, meaning it's pretty much, from my point of view, these rosters are super, super even. It's difficult to say because we really don't know how these players are going to be at Black Ops 4. We haven't had the game in a competitive aspect yet. We haven't seen a LAN or anything. This is really just speculative at this point. But for me, they're super, super, super close. This is pretty much, for me, both these rosters are a good mix of talent and experience. As of recent, 100 Thieves does have more championships. I think it was a total of, obviously, some of them won them together, but a total of 8 championships between the 5 of them last year, which is a pretty good start, whereas OpTic only have 2. Obviously, having Octane in there and having TJ in there. Octane's on 100 Thieves. Having TJ in there, who won 2. OpTic, though, do have the storied past of being the best teams for years, though, and it's so difficult to pin them up against each other, but I mean, we haven't got the game yet. We haven't got it. So this is a completely speculative video. You may disagree, you may agree, but let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with my matchups and how they go? So just going to go back through it one more time. I did say Slasher over Dashi. I said TJ over Enable. I said Karma and Octane, very similar in that role, I would say. Ferro versus Crim, I give to Crim. Kenny versus Scump, I give to Kenny. So both these teams are very, very evenly matched. Guys, let me know what you think of what I said. Whether you think I'm talking absolute rubbish, discuss in the comments. I'll be commenting back as well to answer any questions. Please give the video a like. It would mean a world to me. Please could you subscribe as well. I've been waffling on for hours here. I feel like let's end the video there. Guys, thank you very, very much for watching. We'll be with you in another video later on this week. We'll see you then.